Hello, welcome to class. I'm Temi. I'm your fashion tutor at TCG Fashions. Today I'll be showing you how to create your gather skirt. It's very simple, but you need to bear in mind that there are some rules that govern how to make gather skirt. And the major thing is the thickness of your fabric. You know, there are several formulas out there on what to use to calculate the weight that you gather back to the waist. Gathering means you are cutting excess fullness that you gather back to the original waist measurement. Some authors will tell you to multiply your hip. Let's say my hip is 36 and my waist is 28. They will tell me to multiply my hip by 3 to get a wider fabric. Then I will gather it back to my original waist. So some will tell me to multiply my waist by 4. My waist is 28, for example. I multiply it by 4. I will get a very long waist. Then I will gather it back to 28, which is my original waist measurement. But the summary of the matter is the thickness of the fabric you are using is what really matters. If I'm using chiffon fabric, for example, I might need to gather multiply my even hip more than 3. I might use hip times 4. If my hip is 36, I might multiply 36 by 4 to have a fuller weight that I will gather back to my waist measurement. But if I'm using cotton or thick crepe, for example, I might not be able to use that amount of fullness. It will be too bulky. So I hope you understand. So there is really no rule per se. It depends on the fullness you are working towards. But for the purpose of this class, I'm going to use a yardstick, a rule for you. But you are not boxed inside that rule. You can be free depending on the texture of the fabric you are working with. I believe that is clear, right? So let's say we are doing hip times 5 for a chiffon fabric. There are times that you even gather hip multiplied by 5 and the result you will get will still be light. So sometimes you can, it depends. I hope you understand. It depends. By the time you start practicing, you will get this better. So it depends on the thickness of the fabric you are working with. So if you are using a lighter fabric, you multiply the hip by more figures to get a more volume. Then you gather it back to the waist. The waist is what we target in gathering. Once your waist is firm, your hip will fit in. So your target is the waist. You have to gather it back. If your waist is 28, you shrink it together back to 28, which is your original waist. So for this class, I'll be using a miniature measurement. I'm using waist 10 and I'm using the length to be 5 inches. But please, you will have to use your own exact measurement. Me, I'm using this smaller measurements just because I would like the camera to capture everything at a glance. Okay, so please use your own measurement. So I'll multiplying my waist by 2. I'm assuming that I'm using a very thick fabric. So if I multiply my waist by 2, that means I'll have 20. So the length, you don't do anything to the length. The length is still going to be constant. The length of the skirt is still the same, whether you are gathering or you are cutting it as a straight skirt. So the width will be 20. In my own case, I will cut 20 width, then the length will still remain 5 inches. But since we are using slash and spread method, you will still mark your exact width, which is 10. So this is what we are going to slash open and we'll spread to 20. So I'm marking 10 up and down. I will rule it and cut. Okay, maybe I can just cut straight then. So I'll just cut. So this is my width and length in a short paper, this white. So now I'll be determining the number of slashes I would want to have. It shouldn't be too much. If it's so tiny, it will be frustrating. So let me just do like maybe 8 or 9. Let's see. So after I slash this way, after I rule the lines this way, I will need to put my labels, because by the time I'm done, everything will just look similar. So this is the center. So this is the center. I will write center front. This is one of the center of the back, center back. Okay, then I will determine how many inches I want to add for zipper allowance. I think I'm fine with 0.5 inch. I don't like too much allowance for zipper. Another thing you need to determine is the width, the height of your band. Excuse me, the height of your band. So let's say you want your waistband to be let's say 1 inch or 1.5 inches, depending on you. You will mark the height of the waistband, you will rule it out, then you will cut it off. You don't have to spread your waistband. The waistband should be straight. There's no point slashing and spreading the waistband. So that's the reason we are cutting out the waistband before we slash the remaining. But this waistband also, you need to put your labels. This is center back, this is another center back. Okay, then don't forget that the waistband will be cut on fold. So you can either fold your fabric into two this way, then you put one of the edge on the folded edge like so. So you just add 0.5 seam allowance on the other open edge that you will use to join the band back to the skirt when you're done. So you might need to put the fold sign. Let's see. So just put your fold sign on one of the angles of the pattern, then add the seam allowance on the other side of the pattern. Then you can also put it that you want to be cut on straight grain if that's what you want. So no matter how small a pattern is, you can put all the labels that is needed. So after I remove one from the length of my skirt, so that means I'm left with 4 inches for my skirt length, as you can see. Okay, so now the next thing to do will be to slash, but before that I will label, because the patterns are the same. By the time you slash, everything will look similar. And this one we are slashing through because we are gathering. If you are gathering, you slash through because you want to introduce extra fullness in between each of the lines. Okay, so this is okay, here we go. So now I would use my blue paper to spread. So I will exclude 0.5 inch at this edge and at the other edge for my zipper allowance. So this is my zipper allowance. I will just draw a straight line on that. Then I will start placing my pieces of the slashed fabric, but I will need to work with guidelines to make it easy. I intentionally chose paper that is wider than necessary because I would want to add seam allowance at the top and at the bottom. I will need the seam allowance at the top to join my skirt back to the waistband. Then I will need the seam allowance at the bottom to hem my skirt. So I can just rule a line on the two seam allowances, the one at the top and the one at the bottom, like so. So it will be easy for me to place my pieces of the gathered the slashed gathered skirt once I have guidelines that I'm working with. So this method can be very stressful anyways, but in pattern making, if you are using strictly pattern, this is how you do it. So let me just teach you. Once you know it won't be stressful again. So now after placing the first one, don't forget that I did waist multiplied by 2. So that means I'm doubling what I have. So what exactly the white measurement is the space I will put in between before I place the second piece of the white. So assuming I want waist by 3, that means I will put double. Do you understand the logic now? If I did waist by 4, that means I will put triple of my white size, the width of the white paper, before I place another white paper. That space in between is exactly what I use to multiply. By the time I'm done spreading this, I will have 20. And that was because I used waist multiplied by 2. Okay, so now I hope you guys can see. Okay, I think you can see. Can you guys see it now? I think so. So the extra that I have here is my 0.5 zipper allowance. So by the time I run my gathering stitch on here, I will gather it back to 10 inches. Then I have my hem here to just hem it. Then I will bring back my band after transferring it on fabric. After transferring the band on fabric, adding seam allowance, I will just attach it back here. Don't forget that I would have gathered this back to this size, and that gives me one method of gathering. Okay, and there are some designs that will not give you the time to do all of these. So in that kind of design, what you just do is cut a long strip of 20 inches, are we together? Make the length of the skirt to be, reduce whatever you want to use as band. Let's say, for example, I want to use 5 for 1. The length is 5, then the band is 1. So I'll just get a paper that the length is 4. Just get a paper that the length is 4. you know, just get fabric rather, beg your pardon, that the length is 4. Okay. The length is 4. Then this width is whatever you want. Let's say you want to do waist by 2 or waist multiplied by 3. So whatever you want to be this width, you just gather it back together to the actual waist. Then you introduce back the waistband. You know, after you've cut it on fabric, you folded it into 2, you added your seam allowance, you add your size seam allowance, and you just join. Gather skirt is very easy to make and very straightforward. So that's that. If you have any question, please feel free to ask me in class. I will see you in the next class. Bye for now.